Hello and welcome to another episode of Geared Toward Gear. My name is Sean and I'm so glad you're here. Raise your hand if you like karambits. I am not raising my hand. Not a big fan of karambits, but I do have kind of an interesting one to share with you today. There's kind of a cool story behind it, and this will be given away. Not on this video, but in a giveaway that's coming up very, very soon. So this knife is made by QSP, which stands for Quality, Service, Price. It's kind of a relatively new player on the market, Chinese produced, and it is called the Eagle. And there it is, the box, magnetic closure. Got your little presentation there of the knife. So let's get this guy out here, get the box out of the way, and talk about the QSP Eagle. So, not a big fan of karambits personally. But I think there's a huge market for them. A lot of people are into this style. A lot of people are into kind of knives for self-defense. And I had an opportunity to get this for free, kind of less shipping costs from QSP by way of the Apex Pass Round group. So shout out to QSP and to the Apex Pass Round group. They sent a number of these to the Pass Around, and they were going to be ours to keep, essentially. And there were not a lot of people interested in taking a look at them. So those of us that were, we get to keep them. We just paid shipping. So for that reason, it's being given away. And again, that'll come on a future video. So let's talk about the QSP Eagle. So quick down and dirty. Overall length is 8 inches. We're looking at D2 blade steel. It is a flipper design, and it goes for $50. So G10 and D2 on a flipper platform for $50. That's your short version there. Karambits are just something that I've never really personally been into. As I've probably mentioned before, I don't carry my knives personally for self-defense, which is why I'll often carry a small knife, because I just use it for EDC, generally speaking. I don't know that this is a great EDC knife, but we'll get into that. So let's talk about the basic specs we got going on here. So the blade is going to be about 3.125 inches. This particular one is coated, at least the primary grind here is coated black, painted black. I'm not quite sure exactly what process they use. Then the flats up top are satin finished. And then you've got your secondary grind or your bevel down there. You've got a little bit of swedge that is also blackened. And then kind of these grooves cut into the flats up top that are filled with that black color as well. So a lot of contrast going on in the blade there as far as the color is concerned. So that's kind of neat. Not my style per se, but definitely pretty cool and kind of aggressive looking. So nothing wrong with that. The handle length on this guy is going to be, well, let's get as best of a measurement as we can. So we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.25 inches from kind of the very end of the handle here to the very butt of the ring. So a good size handle. I have extra large hands, as you know, and that's how it fits in my hand. So a pretty large knife at about 8 inches overall. The handle, as I mentioned, is made of G10, and we'll get in a little closer on that. So we can see the G10 there. It's got that kind of texture and design to it. I was kind of thinking scales when I first saw it, like dragon scales, but I imagine being called the Eagle, that's supposed to kind of be feathers or something like that. It doesn't look bad, that's for sure. And it is genuine G10. Both sides have the same design and texture. You also have the same G10 on your back spacer, which kind of turns into your ring here, which we'll talk a little more about in a minute. So that's what we're looking at as far as the handle. It's got some texture to it. It's not crazy grippy, but just the way this knife is designed with the finger groove and the ring and kind of the texture on the spine, it's not going anywhere. Could it be more grippy? Sure, I guess. But I think it's plenty secure in the hand. I wouldn't have any concerns with this thing going anywhere. So that's what we're talking as far as the handle is concerned. The liners are stainless steel. They are, one of them is partially nested, and if I can get in, it's kind of hard to see because it's all black on black on black, but there is some milling. It may be easier to see from this side. Maybe not. So there's some milling to kind of lighten up the weight on the liner lock side, and there is none on, well, no, there is. So on both sides, there's some milling in the actual liners. Again, it's going to be really hard to see on film, but take my word for it, both sides do have some milling to reduce some weight. So stainless steel liners is what we're looking at. The action on this thing is a flipper, as you can see here, and it runs on ceramic ball bearings, which is pretty nice at this price point. And just as a flipper, like if this was not a Karambit, it was just any other knife, the flipping action is actually quite good. It flips out really well. It drops shut. So really no complaints. It has phenomenal action, actually, on those bearings. The one thing I would like to see is some thumb studs. I would think that, and again, this is my ignorance with kind of fighting knives, I would think that you would want a second method of deployment in the event of a emergency scenario, let's say. Maybe you're wearing gloves, maybe it's high stress, whatever. Having a flipper is nice, but I think it would be also nice to have some thumb studs on both sides, kind of as your secondary means of deployment. So I don't necessarily love the fact that you can only deploy it via flipper. I think thumb studs would be a nice addition, but the action is actually quite good, and I was really surprised actually at how smooth that thing is right out of the box. So that's what we're talking about as far as action. The lockup on this guy is pretty good actually. There's no blade play up and down, not a micron. Side to side, it's also extraordinarily strong, just a hair if I really crank on it. It is a liner lock, as I mentioned. If I can get the light and the focus just right. Again, it's all black on black on black, but it is locking up at about 40% on my example. So no major issues there. The centering on this guy is dead perfect. I mean, again, it's all black on black, so it's kind of hard to make that out, but let's see if I can do it this way. The centering is dead center on this guy. So overall fit and finish and quality control seems to be actually quite good. Texturing, I kind of already touched on the G10 texturing. There is also some texturing in other places. So we have texture on the liner lock itself, which is super easy to disengage. I mean, just very, very easy to disengage that liner lock. You do also have some jimping on the spine of the blade, which my thumb naturally lands right on that jimping. It's not the most functional jimping in the world. It's actually not good in my opinion. I think it needs to be more aggressive, but that's my opinion, being somebody who's not a Karambit guy. So just take that with a grain of salt. There is also, I'm not going to call it jimping, but if you look at the profile here, you've got these ridges so that if you wanted to kind of move your thumb forward, you kind of have a natural place for your thumb to rest. It's not uncomfortable. I can get my thumb that far forward pretty easily because I have large hands, but if you have medium or small hands, that's going to be a real reach for you to try to get your thumb that far forward. So it may not be functional for some people. For others, it may be not grippy in the least. I mean, it's very, very smooth, but it does create a place for you to put your thumb, which is nice. You also have some texturing on the ring itself. It just kind of the design of it. That doesn't really provide anything really at all, because typically your finger would be inside the ring, I would imagine. But anyway, so that's what we're talking about as far as texture is concerned. The pocket clip on this guy is going to be only for one side. So in this case, it is right hand tip up only. I'm not positive if they make a left-handed version of this, but this one is right hand tip up only. The pocket clip is okay. It carries fine. You're going to have a lot sticking out, which I would imagine is a good thing for a knife that's designed to be a self-defense knife, right? If you need to get this quickly, you don't want to be digging for a deep ride pocket clip where there's nothing sticking out. So you're going to have a good, let's get a rough measurement on this, 1.25 inches, we'll call it, sticking out of the pocket. So plenty of real estate sticking out. So you could consider that a positive if you're carrying this as a self-defense knife. You could consider that a negative if you're the type that likes a little more discreet carry. So again, just kind of keep that in mind, take it for what it's worth. You'll have quite a bit sticking out. But again, I think that's necessary probably if you're going to use this for its, I'll call it its intended use as more of a self-defense oriented knife. The ergos overall are good. It's comfortable in a hammer grip. I'm not getting any hot spots at all, none whatsoever actually. In a light kind of EDC grip, it's also comfortable. And for EDC, the testing that I did was pretty minimal for a couple reasons. One, I'm going to give this away, so I want it to be in essentially brand new condition. But it opens packages like a dream because it's got that nice kind of a cute hawkbill shape to it. So, I mean, it goes through a box, tape, super easy. Same thing with like opening a letter. It just kind of zips through it. Other than that, for EDC, this blade shape for me is not an EDC blade shape. It is more of a self-defense blade shape. But it did fine and was perfectly comfortable to do those very kind of light use EDC tasks, but it would never be what I would choose for EDC personally. The ring here, let me close this guy up, is quite strong actually. So you've got, if you look at the spine here, you've got your handle scales and you've got your steel liners and then you've got your G10 backspacer. So if you'll notice, the ring is comprised of the same materials. So you have G10 in the middle, sandwiched between stainless steel. So those liners do extend and fully kind of wrap around and encapsulate the ring. So it's not just G10 or plastic. You actually have stainless steel on both sides of the ring to give it some extra strength. Again, I'm not a karambit expert. I imagine you would hold it like this, would be one option, to have your pinky in it, which for me is not super comfortable, to be honest with you. And I have pretty big hands, and it's kind of pulling my pinky that direction, not super comfortable. In the reverse grip, I would imagine, again, your index finger would go in here. For me, that's it's fine, but it puts my hand, as you can see, pretty far away from the blade, kind of in a natural grip. And I have big hands again, so my big fat ring finger doesn't fit in there very well. So I'm just not sure. Again, I claim a certain amount of ignorance on karambits, actually a lot probably. So I don't know how effective the ring really is for me, and just kind of the way I've been messing around with it and trying to kind of figure out how to use this thing comfortably. But it has a ring, and I see a lot of karambits that have rings, so that's that. But overall, ergos without the ring kind of being in the conversation are just fine. So no real complaints there. So price on this guy, and I should have mentioned this earlier, is about $50, $49.99, something like that. Let's do a couple size comparisons. We got a Rat Model 1 and a Rat Model 2, standard size comparisons there. So you can see the size there. And then we'll bring in our other two standards, our Paramilitary 2 and our Mini Griptilian. So again, you can kind of see the size there. The overall length is a little shorter than the PM2, but it's going to take up a bit more room in the pocket, obviously kind of being that karambit shape to the blade. It's going to take up a bit more room in the pocket. So kind of a pocket hog, a bunch sticking out. Not my style necessarily, but for what it is, I think they executed it pretty well at a nice price point. If I didn't already mention it, the blade steel is D2. I think I did say that at the beginning. So for G10 that's done well, D2 that's done well, you know, and a crazy good action, I think it's fair. The price, you know, as far as price is concerned. So if you like karambits or are looking to get into karambits, I think this is probably a great option, frankly, just at the price point. And they offer it in a bunch of different configurations. They have blue and black G10, and then they also have like a kind of a black and white marbled G10 almost. And the blade they offer in basically the opposite of what you see here, where it's black on the flats, satin on the secondary grind, or I'm sorry, the primary grind. And they may even have some that are just all satin with no black coating at all. But there's like 10 or 12 variations of this. This one in particular has a little orange accent around the pivot, and that's just in G10. So there's a little piece of orange G10 there to give it a little pop. So that is it. That is the QSP Eagle. Again, thank you to QSP and to the Apex Pass Round for allowing me the opportunity to test this guy out, which I did very, very lightly, just to kind of get familiar with the Karambit in general. Not my thing necessarily, but again, if you're looking for one, I think kind of as a budget option, this thing is built quite well. And this will be given away. So stay tuned for a future giveaway video. It'll come with a lot of other things, but this will be one of the items given away. So thank you guys all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I'll leave a link below where you can find these, and I'll talk to you soon.